Hey guys, we're gonna make a video about the brachial plexus for y'all. Y'all should be starting this in class pretty soon in the next couple of days. And this is gonna be one of the most important concepts that we cover for exam 1, and it's gonna be retested each exam that you have. It's a really important clinical topic, as well as in lab. There's gonna be things that we'll tag, and I'll point that out to you. So to start off, we're just gonna draw two, they kind of look like sideways Ys, and then a straight line. Here's your other Y. And I know that Barlow is going to tell you guys that there's an acronym that's called Rowdy Troops Drink Cold Beer. We think this is the best one. We couldn't come up with anything funnier. So starting over here, the R stands for roots, as in spinal roots. So we know that the brachial plexus starts at C5 and goes all the way down. Our last one is C8, and then we have T1. There is no C9, so don't say C9. So from C5 to T1, that's going to be the spinal roots that contribute to our brachial plexus. And then we move over to our T, which stands for trunks. So you're going to have a superior, a middle, and an inferior trunk. And then these guys are going to give off divisions. Each one has an anterior and a posterior division. And I'll jump ahead for just a second, so this will make a little more sense. Jumping over to chords, we have a lateral, a posterior, and a medial chord. Medial, not to be confused with median. Medial means going towards the midline. Median means directly in the midline. And so that's a point of confusion for a lot of people. But this posterior chord right here, our posterior divisions, all three of them are going to go towards our posterior chord. So here is our posterior division of the inferior, here's the posterior of the middle, and here's the posterior of the superior. And so then the only thing that's left would be our anterior division. So those are really easy. We just got to fill those in. This guy has a posterior but not an anterior, so we draw that in. And then this one, same thing, that was left over. Those are not super important in the body or on exams, but they do help you know what nerve roots are going to contribute to our nerves way down here. And then over here, these are our chords, like we just said. Those are going to have different amounts of nerves coming off of them, which we'll show you in a minute. And then these are our terminal branches. So that's what the B stands for. Starting up at the top, we have our lateral chord terminates as our musculocutaneous nerve. I'm going to abbreviate that as musculo. And then this one, our posterior chord, terminates as our radial nerve. Down here, we terminate as our ulnar nerve. And then the only other thing we need to draw on right here would be our axillary nerve. It doesn't come off of your radial nerve, but it does have the same nerve roots as your radial nerve, which is why we draw it there. And then our last thing, very commonly forgotten, is going to be your median nerve. Okay, and so our median nerve, which means it's directly in the midline, has two contributions. It has a medial chord contribution or a medial root contribution, and then a lateral chord or lateral root contribution to form that large median nerve down the midline of your arm. So starting in our cadavers, the first thing you're going to be able to see is our chords. We don't see any of this because these are going to be up in our cervical region. From this point forward is where we're going to identify things. So you're going to identify nerves coming off of your lateral chord, posterior chord, you're going to find your median nerve, etc. So you guys should stop the video, work on just getting this basic format down to where you can memorize it without all of these words. And then Evan's going to jump back in and show you a simplified version with all the nerves that you need to know for clinicals and muscular innervation.
All right, guys, so this is just a simplified version of what Cassidy just went through with you all, just without writing all of the words so that it's a little bit more cleared up. And so looking at some of the nerves that you're going to want to know and memorize, starting off at the top, you're going to have your dorsal scapular nerve. And so I'll write that in real quick, abbreviated, dorsal scap. And if you're wondering what nerve roots that's going to be, you can look at it, and it's just going to be right from C5 because it's coming right off of there. So I'll write just 5 right there. The next one you're going to want to know is your long thoracic. And so think long thoracic. You'll just draw a straight line all the way down, and then note that right here, long thoracic. And this one has contributions from both 5, 6, and 7. And so you can kind of draw on these little lines kind of like this. So 5, 6, 7. After that, you're going to want to draw one line up and one line down. These nerves are your suprascapular nerve and your nerve subclavius. Both of these, looking at the diagram, come from 5 and 6. So that's your nerve to subclavius and your suprascapular. Both of them 5 and 6. After that, it's pretty simple. You're gonna move over. On your medial cord, you're gonna put 1 line down. On your posterior, you're gonna put 3. And on your lateral cord, you're gonna also put 3. I think I said these backwards. This is your lateral cord, this is your medial cord. So 1, 3, 3. At the top, you're gonna have your lateral pectoral nerve. Lateral pec. And this one is gonna have contributions from C5, C6, and if you look at this division right here, you're gonna have C7 coming up as well. So this is 5, 6, and 7. In this posterior cord, you're gonna have your lower, middle, and upper subscapular nerves. Don't get this confused with your suprascapular nerve that's up here from 5 and 6. These are your lower, middle, and upper subscapular nerves. So I'm not gonna write that in for lack of space, but just note that your middle subscapular nerve, another name for that is thoracodorsal nerve. And so the contributions from these are a little bit wacky. I think Barlow will give a little bit more detail about what she exactly wants, but I would believe that she's gonna say that these are 5 and 6 for the upper and the lower, and that the middle subscapular or the thoracodorsal is 6, 7, and 8. Sometimes you'll see sources, or maybe Barlow will want y'all to know that this is 5, 6, and maybe 7, and that the upper is 5, 6, and maybe 7. But like I said, she'll go into more detail of exactly what she wants y'all to do, because it's different on different sources. For the 3 at the bottom, you're gonna have your medial pectoral nerve. Just like up here, we had our lateral pectoral nerve. You have your medial pectoral nerve coming off of your lateral, or your medial cord there. And then you're gonna have your medial cutaneous nerve of the arm and the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm. Remember that another word for arm is the brachial region, and that another word for your forearm is your antebrachial region. So these could also be interchangeably be called medial cutaneous brachial nerve and antebrachial nerve. And so all of these are gonna be contributions from 8 and 1. So you can see that over here, they'll get their contributions from 8 and 1. Cassidy already told you guys what all these terminal nerves are from all of these nerve roots, but just to go quickly through them, what contributions they'll have. You can trace this musculocutaneous one back to be 5, 6, and 7. Your median nerve, being right in the middle, is going to have contributions from the whole thing. So I'm going to write all. So that's C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. Your radial nerve is the same thing as the median nerve. That's all of them. Your axillary nerve is just going to be 5 and 6. This is a little bit of a weird one, just like here in the middle. There's like 5, 6, maybe 7, 5, 6, maybe 7. Doesn't really make too much sense why it's 5 and 6, but just trying to remember that axillary is 5 and 6. That's one of the only oddballs, one of the only ones that you can't directly trace back. And your ulnar nerve, just like these 3 off the medial, is 8 and 1. So that's all of your nerve contributions, and we'll talk about some more practice question clinical type applications.
Hey guys, after you study those nerves that Evan just gave you, I would say the next step after that would be go and find which muscles are innervated by each of those nerves, because you will have some test questions that are going to ask things like, you lose your dorsal scapular nerve, what muscles or what actions from those muscles are going to be affected? So that would be your next step in studying, is I would say pause the video, go look that up, maybe even make yourself a complete list. We're also going to be putting some really good handouts in the GroupMe of a complete list of every muscle that's innervated by, let's say, dorsal scapular and thoracodorsal. We'll give you guys a really helpful list. But this thing I'm about to draw is this super simplified. This is what we chose to write on our test, so we weren't wasting time writing a lot of words because we already had it committed to memory. So just starting out, you already know we start with those sideways Y's, straight line, another Y, and then I just write my numbers. And then we got right here's our trunks, and then I'm going to draw in my divisions right here. There's my chords. And then I have my terminal branches, ulnar, musculocutaneous, radial. I gotta add in axillary, and I gotta add in our median. And then also add in these right here. If you feel like that's helpful, I kind of found that helpful. 3, 1, 2, 3. And that should be it. So those are all your nerves. And so in my brain, I know that this stands for nerve to subclavius, and this stands for suprascapular and things like that. And I know those nerve roots by tracing them backwards. I don't have to waste time writing out these names. I know that this is median nerve, etc. So that's what we'd recommend writing out on your test.
Hey guys, so just real quick, some practical examples of why this is going to be useful or what kind of questions they might ask. We're not going to go into direct practice questions. I would encourage you guys and suggest that you would use your resources for that. Gray's has some really good ones. The BRS, I know that's not a required text anymore, but has some great practice questions in there for you guys. But like Cassidy said earlier, I would definitely know all of the muscles that these are going to innervate. And so any possible question that they could ask as far as, if you lose roots 8 and 1, what would happen? And so you would need to know that all of these are 8 and 1, your ulnar nerve is 8 and 1, but maybe something that's like long thoracic, which is 5, 6, 7, wouldn't be affected. So just a quick concept that might be confusing and might not actually get stated in your notes is this example right here. And so there is a difference between total paralysis of a muscle versus just partial weakness of it. And so say you have a crush injury at the spinal level of C6. And so for a nerve like thoracodorsal, if you get crushed at level C6 and only C6, all of the nerve roots below that, including 7, 8, T1, are going to be lost completely. So a muscle like any of the muscles innervated by thoracodorsal nerve are going to be completely lost. Whereas something like dorsal scapular, since it also has contributions from C5, is going to still have a little bit of innervation. And so those muscles are going to only be partially weakened rather than completely lost. So practice with each other, bounce back any hypothetical questions you might have, and use those resources for any practice questions. And like always, let us know if you need any help or have any questions about anything.